Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Dose. When our son Lars was in elementary school, you could bet with near certainty that at some point in the morning, he would look at me or Hans across the table or maybe in the car and say to us with his big brown eyes, "So, what's the plan?" See, we had read all these parenting books that told us that one way to help your kids adjust to things is to tell them what their day would look like. So we would tell Lars, well, today, Dad will be the one picking you up from school. Then when we come home, we're going to practice your spelling lists. Tonight, we have piano lessons. And if we happen to be really organized that day, we might even say, and then we're going to have yummy lasagna for dinner. And normally, Lars loved this. He loved knowing everything that we needed to do in order to follow this plan. It was like you could see that checklist in his mind. Okay, so I think I know my spelling words. We're done with piano lessons, so now let's go home and eat lasagna. Like sweet little Lars, I think a lot of us love to know the plan. And when that plan works, we like it even better. It could be as simple as a plan for our morning. In order to start the day off right, I need to make my bed. In order to have energy, I'm going to eat breakfast. And in order to keep up social awareness, I'm going to brush my teeth. Or what about plans for our jobs? You might ask your boss to help you set the plan in order to meet a certain goal for your job. Or maybe, because it's the new year, you're training for a 5K and you do a Google search to determine what running plan should I follow in order to get the time that I want. So as Christian people, with all this talk about plans and parts of our life that involve planning and trying to follow that plan, I think it's natural that we would wonder about plans when it comes to our faith. If I'm a Jesus follower, what's my plan? Specifically today, I want to wonder with you, what do I actually need to do in order to follow Jesus? Let's start by looking in the Bible at some things that Jesus says to us on this very topic. In Mark chapter 8, verses 34 through 35, he speaks to this. Jesus is standing with a crowd and his disciples, and he says to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it." So you might ask, like I would, okay, Jesus, so what does that even mean to deny myself, take up my cross, and follow you? Well, if we look a little closer at this part in the book of Mark, in this Bible in particular, the heading sometimes can give us a clue. It says, Jesus foretells his death and resurrection. So Jesus is telling his disciples earlier in verse 31 that he will undergo great suffering, be rejected by authority, be killed, and rise again. So think about this for a minute from the perspective of the disciples. They were fishermen and tax collectors. They'd given up their livelihoods in order to follow Jesus. And so far, things may have been bumpy along the way, but they'd kept with Jesus. And maybe they could tell that they were a part of something bigger. More and more people were wanting to be healed by Jesus. They were wanting to be taught by Jesus. So the disciples, they hear this plan, which involves suffering, rejection, and death. And that didn't likely match what they thought Jesus' plan should be. In fact, earlier we read that Peter, one of the disciples, pulls Jesus aside after he says this and rebukes him. Peter doesn't want to believe that any of this will happen. It's like he says, "No, Jesus, you must be wrong. Everything's going to turn around. These people who are really upset with you, these authorities, they'll figure it out. You don't need to talk about death or resurrection. You didn't tell us this part of the plan earlier." But then, see, Jesus turns around and he rebukes Peter. He says, "You're setting your mind on human things, Peter." So that brings us back to the question we're asking today. What do I need to do in order to follow Jesus? Well, maybe Jesus is reminding us, like he's reminding Peter, that sometimes we need to surrender our own plans. We often think of surrendering as a bad thing. It means we gave up or we somehow denied that we were right. But listen again to verse 34. "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." When I think back to sweet little Lars's question, "So, Mama, what's the plan?" Well, when I knew the plan, we carried it through. It was a lovely part of our family day. But when things didn't go according to that plan, Lars hated it. He would go crazy. He would be so upset. And so eventually, we had to stop telling him the plan for our day. We had to teach him to be flexible, to go with the flow, to listen to situations and people around him, and to realize that it wasn't somehow a failure of his day when the plan wasn't followed through. So what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? It doesn't always mean that things go right in the ways I think they should, according to my own agenda. Maybe it means, just like it did in Jesus' final journey, that sometimes we will face suffering or rejection, that eventually we will all face death, and surrendering is hard. I know I love to know the plan and know that it will be followed through, but Jesus reminds us that sometimes following him involves trust. It involves listening and flexibility. And it also comes with a promise of peace, joy, mercy, and grace, unlike anything that my own agenda could have created in the first place. Thanks so much for watching the Daily Dose today. We'd love for you to subscribe if you're watching on our YouTube channel, or be sure to tell a friend, invite them to watch with you on cable or on Facebook. Thanks so much.